For our inclusion workshop, we did individuals with dyslexia.
This slide is about the definition of dyslexia. So dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. Some of the characterizations of dyslexia are difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition, poor spelling and decoding abilities, deficit in the phonological component of language, problems in reading comprehension, reduced reading understanding. And reduced reading understanding can also delay the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. These characteristics can also lead to impairments in fundamental skills that are linked to writing disabilities.
Dyslexia is a learning disability type thing, and it affects me in reading, but I also have dysgraphia, which affects me in spelling and writing. One thing that I have trouble with is I can't read my writing. So when my teacher asked me to read out loud my writing, I can't because I can't read my writing.
It's not a huge difference. I'd say definitely don't let it get in your way and think that it's a downside or a negative. It's just a different way of learning, and you might just need to do some different stuff or whatever works for you.
Dyslexia doesn't mean you're stupid. It means you're really smart and different than other people.
It's that you're not average. That could mean many things. It's like you might be worse in some areas, like I was worse in reading and writing, but you might excel in other things like math for me, science. I enjoy those greatly.
I'll just pretend I'm sick. I can't go to school because I'll be so far behind on work, so I won't understand even what unit we're on anymore. I stopped doing homework. I dropped my grades so low. I nearly didn't even pass the grade.
When I was younger, I was reading way below grade level, and it was really hard. I'm really good at comprehending what the story is trying to say, but actually reading through all of the words was really hard. So I got over that, and now I'm reading above grade level, but still.
When somebody makes fun of me, I tell them I just have a different way of thinking, a different way of doing stuff.
The lowest moment I ever had in school was probably in second grade, and none of my papers were hung up in the hallway, and on Fridays we would always get an extra recess, and I never got to go out for that. I always had to sit on the wall and do my homework because I needed extra help and I didn't get it, and I just couldn't get it. I tried very hard, but I couldn't get it. I didn't get the same possibilities that everybody else did. They never saw what I wrote. They never understood it. So it didn't really mean anything.
Homework is an experience. It usually takes me 5 or 6 hours to do not all of my homework. I can get 3 assignments done maybe, and it hurts my mind, and sometimes if I have lots to do, I even wake up early and do more homework.
We would have these coded books on which color you were, and of course, me being a dyslexic, I was in the lowest color. You kind of feel alone at the very beginning.
Laws that support individuals with dyslexia. While IDEA states dyslexia is a disability, it does not define it and does not address how the institution should address it. So the help the students receive will vary from state to state and student to student, since dyslexia is not always the same in all students. This also means that all the states will have different ways to approach this. It does not guarantee that the student will get all the help they need, but it does guarantee that they get some help. In the 21st Century Dyslexia Act, which was recently introduced, focuses on all the students with dyslexia. And it removes dyslexia from the learning disability category in IDEA, but it does state it as a whole different thing of its own. But it still requires that students get the help they need no matter their socioeconomic status. Since the dyslexia laws will focus on different things in different states, they will generally follow some of those following issues, such as defining dyslexia and other conditions that affect language learning, early screening and identification of students with dyslexia from grades kindergarten up to third grade, procedures for schools and states for screening and early intervention, which are known as dyslexia handbooks, training and professional development for current teachers so they'll understand how to teach children with dyslexia, education about dyslexia and teacher preparation programs, accommodation, support, and early intervention for kids identified as having dyslexia or being at risk, and funding for programs. For Arizona, they help the students by getting them early screening from kindergarten up to third grade, and it requires that all institutions that have these grades to have at least one dyslexia trainee designing on campus.
Students with dyslexia can develop a lot of frustration and feel very discouraged in their younger years, especially when peers are beginning to surpass them and feel as though they're not improving their learning skills. This frustration can stem from their inability to succeed no matter how hard they're trying. Anxiety is frequent in children and adults with dyslexia. They tend to avoid certain school activities like reading out loud. This is more from confusion and anxiety, but parents and teachers can view this as laziness or unwillingness, so it is important to know the difference. Their internal frustrations can also affect their social relationships. Dyslexia can affect a student's way of communicating, so they might have trouble finding the right words or pause before answering. They can also struggle to understand what people are saying if they're teasing, using sarcasm, or words that have more than one meaning to them. These can all confuse a person and make them have less of a relationship with the peers. As parents or teachers, it is important to listen to a child's feelings. You have to provide clear explanations and describe fully what you need from them. It's also important to remember that they are not lazy. It is important to reward effort and not just the outcome of situations.
Ways to address educational and social needs in an educational setting. Specialized instruction. This is a type of teaching that is utilized to fit within every need of the student. This is so that visual, auditory, and tactile learning is utilized for the student to learn what they need to learn. Social emotional learning. Including this step helps develop students' emotional skills and allows them to create routines for themselves that are beneficial to regulation. It can work for team building and empathy building exercises for the students. Supportive environments. This is integral to addressing the social needs. This includes representation in activities, counseling services, and peer programs that promote culture and allows diversity in all types of needs. How to promote inclusion in general education. Multisensory learning. For students with dyslexia, many of them struggle to engage and retain information that is not tailored for their needs. Incorporating visual aids allows them to learn with learning styles tailored to them. Technology. Technology allows for students to engage in their learning in a variety of ways. Any text-to-speech software helps students with reading comprehension and struggles with dyslexia and building fonts for better retention. Flexibility. Building a flexible classroom allows for students with dyslexia to build a system around what they need. This includes an extended time for students and alternative assignments.
There are a couple community resources in Arizona. First one is Dyslexia Pros. It's a tutoring center that makes a plan for each student for their specific needs. They can be tutored in many different aspects of school like reading, math, writing, and handwriting. They will also do more focused lessons like phonics, spelling, vocabulary, study skills, and Greek and Latin roots. The tutors are highly trained and certified in academic tutoring for those with dyslexia. Next, there's Reading and Math Clinic. The start of the program is a self-test that determines the students' needs and how their services can help them. They specialize in multi-sensory learning instruction and phonetic awareness instruction for struggling learners. Lastly, there's the dyslexic group. They provide tutoring services and therapies to improve efficiency, reading, writing, and math. They provide services like cognitive coaching, pre-reading, and reading therapy, handwriting therapy, writing strategy, and math therapy. They have instructors with a range of certificates and lived experiences, specialized assessments for the students' full capabilities, and collaborative care.
One of the strategies to meet the needs for individuals with dyslexia is assistive technology. This includes tools that can help students save time and show their knowledge in ways that they couldn't without them. One example of this is pocket spell checkers, which helps students get instant feedback on their spelling. Another example is line readers, which helps eliminate distractions when reading by highlighting a single line of text and blocking out the surrounding areas. Another example of assistive technology is digital scanning pens, which captures text and transmits it to a device. Another strategy to help meet the needs for students with dyslexia is personalized accommodations. Having accommodations that are specific to the individual is important for their success. Some examples of appropriate accommodations are additional time to take tests, step-by-step instructions, and checklists that help monitor the student's progress. The third strategy to help meet the needs for individuals with dyslexia is tactile and kinesthetic activities. This incorporates other senses and tactile activities into the lessons. It helps students with dyslexia be able to understand and remember new information. One of these activities is sand writing, which involves students tracing a letter into the sand and corresponding to the sound they are hearing. Another activity is blending boards, which involves students producing the sound of each letter individually and blending them together in order to read the word.
And then here's just a short 5-minute video on how these students can get help and how the educators can provide this help for the students with dyslexia.
A lot of times our students enter with some really upset feelings about academics, and we want them to find that confidence again. Dyslexia is not a cookie-cutter diagnosis. There are two really big areas that a student needs to have under their belt in order to read fluently. One area is called knowledge of the code. So knowledge of the code is understanding what letters or groups of letters together make a word. The other area is called phonological awareness skills. These are those foundational skills. They are 100% trainable, and they look like this. So you might have segmenting, which would mean breaking sounds apart, blending, which would mean mushing all those sounds together, and then phoneme manipulation, which means changing sounds within a word. So students with dyslexia can have challenges in one of those areas or both of those areas. And then it can also manifest into writing as well. We approach reading intervention with evidence-based practice and a speech-to-print approach. Our reading intervention is called phonographics. So this approach falls under that umbrella term of structured literacy intervention, but unlike other structured literacy interventions, it naturally mimics the language development. So in other words, students hear the word, pair it with a visual, and then match the two together. So I hear cow, I see cow, that is now a cow. Here at Odyssey, our intervention does the same thing. So our students hear the sounds, then they see the sounds and the patterns of those sounds within words. So the language that we use here is a little different than a typical general education mainstream school. What a lot of people know as graphemes, we call sound pictures. So that kind of explains it all. They are visuals of sounds. They explain what sound looks like. For example, the sound A has 9 ways to show A. Now, within these 9 ways, we can have A in the beginning, middle, and end of a word, and we would call those ways sound pictures. So during the lesson, this is something that's extremely important when we're teaching students of dyslexia, that one sound picture equals one sound. So a student who says after sounds, for instance, if the word is spray and they say s, p, a, they hear the so they might write a s sound picture, an sound picture, and a p, and continue on. Well, we both know that that's not the way to show spray, and so what Sam did was perfect. She asked the student to cut the sounds, and he had a lot of trouble cutting the sounds, so then she showed him how to cut sounds. So he would go s, p, a instead of sp, a. one sound versus two sounds. So phonographics not only is a great speech to print intervention, but also what it does is it excludes all those rules and exceptions to the rules, opening up that cognitive space for students to really engage in what you're doing and utilize those new strategies in other realms, instead of being boggled down by what's that rule that you told me last week, or why doesn't this actually fit that rule, or why is this an exception, I don't get it. So we don't focus on that stuff because that's extra. We focus on what's most important, and that's those patterns of sound pictures within words. Some of the cues we use in phonographics are touch and say, so using your finger and touching each sound and saying it as you're going. And the other cue that we use is blend as you go. So those are for more multisyllabic words. So if the word is napkin, I'm gonna say nap and then kin and blend them together, napkin, for multisyllabic words. It depends on the student, but sometimes we start with the multisyllabic or many chunk words as young as 2nd, 3rd grade, and sometimes they need a little bit more time. A lot of times I've noticed that I will start with the younger student on those multisyllabic words because they have what's called basic code in them. So napkin, and I are what we call basic code, or in other words, short vowel sounds. The advanced code would be those long vowel sounds, and those multisyllabic words I might target a little later. But there is almost this cascading effect, like the student's confidence kind of boosts when you have these multisyllabic words, because now they can read these longer words, these bigger sentences, chapter books. They just get excited, and that's the point here, is that we want to make reading exciting. We want to make writing something that's not laborious. And that's why I feel like the interventions work, and we see it every day.
Here are some thought-provoking questions. How would you explain dyslexia to someone who may not be familiar with it? Reflecting on social and emotional needs, what are specific challenges they may face, and how can educators or peers provide support? What are some strategies that you can start implementing in your current role, whether it be work or the classroom, to promote inclusivity with those with dyslexia? Here are all of the resources that we used. Thank you for listening.